1 Samuel 30 and 8, it reads, And David inquired at the Lord, saying, Shall I pursue after this troop? Shall I overtake them? And he answered him, Pursue, for thou shalt surely overtake them, and without fail recover all. So today I want to talk about how the Most High tempts or tests his people. And I want to talk about how after one goes through that test period or that tempting period, the other side of that comes a blessing. A blessing. I've been thinking about a particular scripture for quite some time. You know, before, it was one of those scriptures that it's kind of hard to digest, kind of hard to understand until it's revealed to you, you know, over time through your dedication and your relentless pursuit of understanding. So the example I want to use of how the Most High tests a person's and how on the other side of that comes a reward, I want to discuss a story which involves Abraham and his wife Sarah. And you can find this particular portion in Genesis 18 through 22. You know, I'm actually quite fond of the Old Testament now, because all of the book itself is full of substance, but there's some keys, some very important keys to be found in the Old Testament that kind of unlocks the entire book. Anyway, you see, Abraham was walking in the ways of the Most High. He was walking in the way, standing upright, and his wife as well. You know, Abraham was about 100 years old at this particular time. And one day, the Most High spoke to Abraham. And he told him that at an appointed time in the future, that he was going to bless him with a son or with a child. So after Abraham heard this, he returns to Sarah and he tells his wife that what had happened and what he was told. You know, and Sarah laughed. Sarah laughed at it at the time, and he says she was going to be with a child. And she thought to herself, you know, how could I be of a child at my age as a woman, you know, thinking it was impossible, like there's no way. So she kind of laughed. And Abraham looked at her and he says, is there not anything that's possible from the Lord? And she took heed to that, and they went on. Now the story continues for a chapter of how, you know, Abraham comes to a particular city and he tries to hide himself in his wife Sarah, and he kind of passes her off as his sister. And why this is important is because the Most High has a plan for them both. So the Most High comes to the king of this particular city. He tells him, don't touch Sarah. I want you to let them go, let them pass. Because the Most High knows the future future and what's needed through Abraham. So they continue to walk in the ways of the Most High, and the appointed time comes, and Sarah is now with child, just as the Most High says. And they named this child Isaac. And, they continue. Isaac grows up. He's happy. They're happy. And Sarah's elated. She's elated at the fact that at her age, they're 100 years old. They're old. And she comments on how she can suckle, or Isaac can suckle from her. And what's striking about it is not only that they have the faith in what the Most High says and trust in His word is done without sight. They continue to walk, they continue to live in the way as they were told. You see, in those times, the connection with the Most High was a lot stronger through the bloodline and through oral translation and oral telling of the true account. You see, in those times, it was well known. The truth was well known, and it was passed on. So the meat of what I want to say comes in Genesis 22. And again, this particular section, it took a long time to really understand not only why this had to take place, but its true meaning. So in Genesis 22, the time came when the Most High tempts Abraham. He tests him. The Most High he knew Abraham's heart. He knew his walk. But at the same time, the Most High, in my opinion, he has to know how far you're willing to go. How far are you willing to go for him? He's a jealous God for a reason. Because the enemy created lesser gods. Now, this is a time where lesser gods, lesser idols were attempted to install themselves. So Abraham's test was important because through Abraham, as promised, his seed line would populate the world. So it was important for him to take up the walk, but also be tested, have his faith tested. So the Most High comes to Abraham in a dream, and he says, Abraham, and Abraham answers, behold, I am here. And he says, take thee Isaac, and I want you to offer him up as a burnt offering unto me. Abraham, he doesn't question it, he doesn't doubt. With resolute absolution, the next morning he gets up, he grabs Isaac, he takes 2 helpers, and they set off to find a mountain in which the Most High directs him to offer up Isaac. So on the 3rd day, Abraham, he looks up and he sees the mountains in which the Most High directs him to, Moriah. And he tells his 2 helpers, stay here while I take the lad up to the mountaintop to worship. So they continue the journey, and at a point, Isaac looks up at his father, and he says, Father. Abraham answers, yes, son, I am here. And he says, we have the wood and we have the fire for the burnt offering, but we don't have a lamb. And Abraham looks at Isaac and he says, God will provide us with the lamb. And they continued on. So they come up to the mountain. Abraham builds the altar. He meticulously lays the wood. And then he bounds up his son, Isaac. He bounds him up. And he sets him on the altar. And again, it took a long time through diligence and letting the Ruach help to see what was transpiring and why it had to transpire. Abraham then, he takes a knife and he's about to offer up his son Isaac. And at that moment, the Most High sends an angel. And the angel of the Lord called unto him out of heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thy only son, from me. And Abraham then, he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him was a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering in his son's stead. You see, the Most High is only going to put you through what he knows in your heart that you are able to handle. So the level of your walk will be the level of your test. Because he is just. He's righteous in all his ways. No man can understand the thoughts of the Most High, but he knows the beginning from the end. Therefore, he knows you. He already knows the choices you are going to make. The choices that you're going to make and have made, he already knows. What you have to do is have faith in that and walk that thing out. So on the other side of this, Abraham being tested, the message is the Most High wants to see what's in each person's heart. What are you willing to do? Now, Abraham, he didn't have any doubt of what he needed to do. You know, there's a section that says, if you put mother, father, brother, or sister before me, you're not worthy of me. And there's a reason for that. Because the enemy will use those that you love to get you to do the things that you might know are unrighteous or unjust. The enemy can be of your own household. So it really lies on your commitment, your faith with the Creator, with your Creator. So on the other side of this test that Abraham goes through, as it was written, Abraham is then blessed through Isaac, a seed line that would populate the world. And that's where you get the 12 tribes that are spoken about in the Bible. There are 12 important tribes. The tribe of Jacob in particular, which is where I belong to. These tribes will go on to the far corners of the world. So I want you to, think about that for a moment. Think about Abraham's and Sarah's walk. Abraham could have wanted to keep his son, whom he loved dearly. He could have turned away from the Most High, but he didn't. And because he didn't, the blessing came for him. And it's true with you or not. And there's one more secret that I want you to think about as I leave you. Who else is known as the Ram? What other individual was known as a ram? What's a thicket? What is a thicket? Take a look at that. You see, the ram in the thicket was Yeshua, Jesus. That was the symbolism there. The Most High knew, and he knows that he was going to send his own son in the stead. But the test was the same for Abraham. The Most High knew that he was going to send Yeshua, his son, the lamb. The ram. What was the crown of thorns? The crown of thorns is the same as a thicket. Ram caught in the thicket. That's Yeshua. You see, the Old Testament points forward to the coming of Yeshua, the coming of Christ. It points forward. There are many areas in which symbolically this is shown. And this is the example. So as I leave you, I want you to be steadfast. Those of us, the remnant, that are continuing our walk, just keep in mind on the other side of the tests that are coming is the blessing. We are the treasure to be collected. Will you be one? Will you be one? I hope so. I pray that you all do. And with that said, I want to thank you all. Be safe.